He's heading into his 20th season as a coach. He is fresh off winning a gold medal with USA at the World Championships. He played in 331 NHL games with the New Jersey Devils, Atlanta Thrashers, Dallas Stars, and Chicago Blackhawks, and won the Stanley Cup in 1995 with the Devils. New Canucks assistant coach Kevin Dean is our guest today on the Canucks Insider Podcast. Let's go back to your rookie season as a pro. You win a Stanley Cup. They also win a Calder Cup. How good were the vibes in the in the New Jersey Devils organization that year?
They were good. They had a good program going back then for sure. I think they knew how they wanted their team to run and how they wanted it to look. They drafted that way. They coached that way. They had their act together. It was a lot of fun. It just seemed like it was, you win my first year you win a Stanley Cup. It's like, oh, this is easy. Like, never sniffed it again. But it was a great time and just surrounded by good people.
Yeah. How do you look back at that now? Because like you said, you're in the first year, you're like, right on. Hockey, I'm in the NHL, I win a cup. Now, how do you look back at that?
Just really fortunate, to be honest with you. Like, fortunate to be a part of that group. I was a very small part because I was up and down between the American League and the NHL that year and played 3 or 4 games in the playoffs that year in the conference finals after winning the Calder Cup. So it was kind of a blur, to be honest with you, but more than anything, just fortunate. I just, I got plugged in there in the conference finals, and my mentality was just don't screw this up for the guys that have been here. Because they almost won it the year before. They lost in Game 7 and like double overtime to the Rangers, who won.
Yeah.
So my mentality was like, I just got to go out and do my job and not screw it up for the guys that have been here.
Well, that defense core that you hop into, I mean, that's one of the best we've seen. So, like, what was it like just kind of coming in as a rookie and being, like you said, you're just trying to just not make some noise, I guess, hopping in there.
Exactly. And, Stevens, Niedermeyer, Bruce Driver, like, they all were elite players at that time. Tommy Albeline, Ken Danico, tough as nails, great player. So, I was just kind of in awe, keeping my head down. And then, the little bit of time I got on the ice, I tried to go out there and do my job and get off before anything bad happened. Yeah. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
So when the playing days come to an end, what led you to coaching? What was something about it? Was there part at the end of your playing career that kind of led you there, or how did it all come about?
I just knew I wanted to be a coach, and I made some calls my last year. My last year I was back in the American League. I was driving between Madison and Milwaukee, which is like an hour every day. And so, towards the end of the year, I started making some calls. Really, it's hard to get in. You got to get lucky to get in. And nothing happened for 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 years. And then Lou Lamoriello called and said, you would like to come and be an assistant on our American League team. So jumped at the opportunity. My wife was on board, 4 young kids. She was great. Like, the oldest was 7. The youngest was like 6 months. Moved halfway across the country to Massachusetts from Wisconsin. And it was great. And so it was a lot of fun. But it was a bit of a blur again. But I had, as much as you want to coach, it's hard to get your foot in the door. And I was lucky and took advantage of it.
If you look back at that time when you're first getting into it, what do you kind of think about yourself as a coach back then? What did you do well when you first came in? Let's start with that.
I don't know if I did anything well. I'm still friends with Kirk Kleinendorf. He was the head coach my first year, and I actually apologized to him a couple of years ago. I'm like, I don't think, but it's just after 20 years, you know so much more than you do your first year.
Right.
And thankfully, the stakes at the American League at the assistant level aren't, life or death, right? So, it was overwhelming. You don't even know what you don't know. So I think I was lucky because I enjoy people, so I just try to establish relationships with the players.
Right.
And that's half the battle, to be honest with you, in my opinion. You got to know your stuff, obviously, and you got to do your work. But over time, I figured out what was important, what wasn't important. But the relationships are always the most important thing, and kind of focused on those, and it seemed to have worked out pretty well.
I think that, Foote kind of talked about the same thing when he was here doing the pod, was just like the relationships, how important they are for yourself to kind of just, create that bond with the player so that they trust you, you can trust them. For you, is that something that you've kind of, like you said, you've always had that through your 20 years of coaching? That was probably something that you felt pretty good about at the start?
Yeah, and I think just lucky I like people, right? Like, I don't think if you don't like people, you probably, people are ornery, people are annoyed by people. I'm not one of those guys, so if you are one of those guys, you probably shouldn't get into coaching, right? Because I think it's like you said, relationship based, and I'm going to be working with 6 or 8, 10 new guys probably at some point this year, and they're going to have to trust me as more than I trust them, to be honest with you. And that what I say to them is for a reason, for a purpose, to help the team. And and if you have a good relationship, and I think that starts with you care more about than just the hockey, you learn where they're from, brothers and sisters, what they like to do, all that stuff. Try to make a connection that way, but a genuine connection, and then hopefully it just goes from there. I coached Faber before, we seem to have a pretty good connection. I like Derek a lot. So, but it's just what you do, and hopefully that trust builds, and then when you need to lean on them, they know you're leaning on them from a good spot.
So coming in and having a head coach who just ran the defense, you're coming in to be working with these defensemen a lot. I got to ask you, what are your thoughts about working with Quinn Hughes here for the next little bit?
It's I'm excited. Like he is so good in my opinion. When I watch him, from an opposition standpoint, he's right there with Cale Makar as the best in the league. I mean, I'm right there in my opinion. He's just terrific. So I'm going to try to, make sure I don't screw up what he does well. Make sure I encourage him to do the things that he does well, which are many.
Yeah.
And then just maybe try to tweak and help on the little things that can help the Vancouver Canucks, and just grow his game a little bit because he's so young still. Right?
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of Canucks fans, I noticed them kind of talking about you getting a chance to work with young defensemen, and that was something that I've seen over your career. You've worked with a lot of young defensemen and helped them kind of get that next level of being a consistent everyday NHLer because, man, at 20 to 23, a lot of guys are trying to figure out what it takes to be able to play 82 games and not have to be healthy scratched. There's a lot of young defensemen on this group here, too. I mean, getting a chance to work with some of these guys. What do you like so much about getting some of these guys and helping them understand what they need to do to be like an everyday NHL defenseman?
Well, I was lucky. So was it 94, 95? There was a lockout year. The year we won the Cup, I was in Albany. And Larry Robinson came down from New Jersey, who's, one of the all-time great defensemen, right? And he was so good to us down there and teaching us just little things that I thought they're, from 1960 to 2025, they're the same fundamentals. And so I try to bring a lot of that. You stay inside the dots, you use your stick well, body position, all that stuff that will never change, I don't think, to be a good hockey player. So I just try to make sure that guys understand the importance of that and then just let their organic skill and talent and instincts take over from there. But those non-negotiables of, staying inside the dot lines, maintaining body position, having a good stick, taking a hit when you need to take a hit, making a hit when you need to make a hit. Like there's some non-negotiables, but so, try to ingrain that in the fabric of the player and then let the player go from there.
Well, just the way you're speaking of that, like it just clicks in my head of like these guys probably obviously they haven't had to experience how difficult it is to be in the NHL to the point that they're at. They're playing in junior, they're playing even in the AHL. I know it's a high level, but those fundamentals, it seems to be the thing that every defenseman has to kind of understand that that's what they have to do. But the young guys, though, now, like, they come in with so much skill. So it's like, how do they not lean on that when they need to fall back on these things that you're kind of talking about? There?
Right. And that's where they can get into trouble is like, I'm just going to skill my way out of this game.
Right.
But the league's too good. Like, and they find that out pretty quickly. And, that they're cheating or they're not paying attention to those fundamentals that they're going to get exposed. And, you don't, I'm not a guy that just really gets on the D hard, but I'll point out, like, listen, this is why you need to be on the inside because you get beat to that good spot, so you just, it's a growing experience. It's not going to happen overnight. They call him baby pet Petey, maybe like, he looks like athletic big kid that can skate, so you just keep chipping away at some of these younger players and their, and the things they have to learn, but then, without taking away his athleticism and or Mancini and the way he shoots and all this stuff, like encourage that stuff, but just chip away at those other little things. And hopefully in a year or two, you have a really good player.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've been able to get your research in on the guys you're about to be working with a ton here. So I guess just your excitement level when you kind of take a step back and look at the role you're about to step in here. I think the Canucks defense, the way it's been built, feels like the strength of the team. Feels like it's kind of been built from the goaltending to the defense out. Coming in and just seeing like the group that you're going to be working with here for the next 82 games, the next however long you're here for, just knowing that this is kind of the core. What's your excitement level? Just if you can take a step back and kind of see what you're walking into.
Well, it's great because I didn't have that in Chicago last. We had a lot of young players, which are really good young players, great people. But it's hard to every night on a nightly basis. They're so young. It gets tough, right? Like, you're looking at Tyler Myers, Quinn Hughes, an elite defenseman. Forward's been around a long time. Marcus Pettersson has been around a while now. So the experience, it's going to be a totally different ball game for me in terms of, it's not going to be, hey, this is what you got to learn. It's like, no, you got to do this now because they should know this, right?
Yeah.
So, but from what I've heard, they're great people. Like every one of these guys is just awesome, an awesome person. So, I'm excited to dig in and work and because I think he's very excited about what he wants to do with the team, and to get the D on board with that piece, I think is going to be exciting.
Yeah. What's it been like this week, kind of just getting a chance to know Footy a little bit more? And like, he's the guy who's been working with this group that he's kind of giving you the job that he just had now. Right. So for you, what's it been like to kind of have those talks with him over this past week?
I really enjoyed it. I've been impressed. Because I talked to him on the phone. We haven't dove into the hockey piece that much, a little bit, but not much. He's talked about leadership groups and, players and, different spots, but we haven't talked about the X's and O's much, which we did a lot the last 2 days, and I'm very impressed. He's very detailed, and he knows how he wants to play, which I think is half the battle. I don't think there's any one system that the coach is going to bring to the table that's better than another one. It's how well you do it and how well you can sell it, and I think Footy's done a nice job there of at least to me and the other coaches of presenting how he wants to play and making it pretty clear. So
with defensemen, I'm curious to get your point of view on this. What do you think has changed the most in the past 10 years from an NHL defenseman?
I think getting up ice and being a part of the offense. I think, I don't know if it's the video or the athleticism and the speed of the players nowadays, but it's hard to score and generate scoring chances. So you need that fourth man in the rush, and then you need all five guys in the ice to help create the offense. I think that's the biggest thing. And, with Quinn Hughes and Hirona can really shoot and bring some offense. I think that, get guys going up the ice in that second wave of offense. I think that's the biggest thing I've seen.
During your playing days, I'm curious, when you're playing in the NHL and you're trying to add to your own game, what did you learn about yourself kind of playing in the NHL and knowing that you needed to change? And how does that kind of translate into coaching at all?
Well, you can see it. Every kid comes into pro hockey thinking they're pretty good. Like they're, because generally you're one of the better players in your team growing up, or even your junior team or your college team. And then you get to the NHL or pro hockey, you're like, wow, I'm like, I'm not that good. So you got to figure out a way to just survive, survive. Like for me, I had to figure out a way to survive in the American League and then become good in the American League. And then when I got called up to the NHL, it was just a matter of just like, what do I need to do to stay in the lineup and keep the puck under my net? So I kind of tilted away from, in high school and maybe even a little bit of college, an offensive mentality to, I got to keep the puck under my net, make a good first pass. So you have to have a good sense of where you are, where your game's at, and be a good self, identify what kind of player you are accurately, some good self-analysis. And I think with a younger kid, the quicker you can do that, I think the better. Not to say that, this Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, comes in, that he can't be a real high-end offensive guy at some point. I don't know his game well enough, but I think to stay in the lineup every night, he's going to have to keep the puck out of his net, make a good first pass, defend well around the net, stuff like that, right? Yeah. And if he does that, then all of a sudden he can grow his game because he's getting the ice time and the patience from the coaching staff to stay in the lineup every night. So I think that's how you grow, is like by creating an identity for yourself, living up to that identity, and then growing from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's like almost like, and I think it's interesting you say kind of like when you talked about just trying to survive at first, I'm wondering, is that about finding a role, or is it kind of getting all your levels up to a level just to survive? Or do you think it is like about kind of the way you just talked about with DP?
Yeah, and you know what, and that's not totally accurate. It's accurate for me because I was kind of a ham and egger, but some of these higher end guys, like you don't want them just the mentality, I got to go out there and just survive. Like what have you done well your whole career that's got you to the NHL?
Right. Like
go out there and do that, right? But you also have to pay attention to the finer points, which for a young defenseman is probably keeping your puck out of the net. Like Quinn Hughes, when he came in, like obviously he was going to be a special player at some point. Everyone knew that. How special, I think he's, really got to that expectation, right? But he couldn't come into the league and just, flag out on defense every night. So he was bearing down, and he's grown that part of his game clearly, right? So, but you don't want, go out there, play safe, Quinn, right? Like, you want these kids to play games, to play on their toes, to make plays, because that's how you get better. Right? Yeah. You don't get better throwing the puck off the glass all night, right? You get better making plays. So you got to encourage that. You got to find that line between high risk and reward time, and, like what times, where's the game at? What's the score? Like all that matters, and you try to teach that. That's becoming a good pro, and it takes time.
Yeah. Well, with those young guys, you talked about being in Chicago the last few years, and like I'm sure you've seen a lot of these young guys grow and have success. As a coach, when you see that happen, when you see them improve, when you see them learn something, like what's it like for you to be like, just see that happen in front of your eyes, watching a kid like understand something or be better at something. Like to watch that happen from a coach's perspective, I wonder if you can put that into words somehow.
It's tough. I mean, it's not like a child, but it's rewarding.
Yeah.
You know, when you see a kid flip all of a sudden the flip switches or the switch flips and he recognizes like, oh yeah, this is the right play. I get it now. Because you're telling him, doesn't quite buy into it, doesn't understand, and all of a sudden he does it a couple of times like, wow. And then all of a sudden the light bulb goes off in his head and you see him incorporating that the rest of his game. Now you're over that hump. Now you take on the next thing, right? And so it's very rewarding. It happens more with some players than others, and those are the intelligent players probably end up, the better players. But you give that time and energy to every player, and you hope that they pick it up. And some do, some don't, right? Yeah. But that's the game.
What's something you want to establish in training camp? Just kind of coming in. Obviously, there's a lot of new guys you're going to end up meeting, and you're going to be spending a hell of a lot of time with these guys over the next bit here. What's something you want to kind of establish as yourself? For
myself?
Camp? Yeah, just for yourself.
Just someone that they can talk to, and and I'm going to reach out to these guys here in the next couple of weeks individually. Like, how do they want to be coached? And that's kind of a loaded question because sometimes you got to coach them like what needs to be coached at the moment. But everyone's a little bit different in how they want to be approached and how they want to be coached. And I want to convey that to them. Like, listen, if you want a lot of video, I'll give you a lot of video. If you don't want a lot, but you want me to be hard on you, I'll be hard on you. Like, what I mean? Just try to, I'm here to help them. Basically, and what do they want to so that they feel like they can take the game to another level? I want them to feel comfortable and say, hey Kevin, like, can we do more of this? Let's do less of this, and try to have a good open communication so that I know where they stand, they know where I stand, and we can kind of grow our games together.
Curious and I asked Brett about this about the forwards. I want to kind of ask you about the defense. What do you take away from like watching teams be successful in the Stanley Cup playoffs? Is there anything you watched this past playoffs and we're like, that's something we need to focus on a little bit more? Like, I know they talk so much about this being a copycat league. Yeah. But I'm curious from like an assistant coach's perspective, do you kind of watch certain parts of the game and you take away a lot there?
Yeah, watching Florida, very impressed with Florida and how they forecheck. I mean, that's not, that's not a unique opinion to myself. Yeah. But they're so determined and predictable. Like everything is going in, it's a rim. Their forecheck, their D are active down the walls, and their forwards are over top reloading for the D. So I love how they're just 5 men in sync the whole game, and we were talking about it today, and we want to get better at that. Like our forecheck, our F1's going hard, our F2's going, our F3's high, so that our D can pinch down the walls and we can keep some pucks alive and wear teams down maybe in the offensive zone, right? So, that's the one thing. I think in skating, teams that skate, whether they're highly talented or not, are difficult to play against, and through attrition, I think they can win a lot of games because, the more time you spend in the offensive zone, good things will happen, right? So I think just being connected, and then in skating, I think, the first guy, whether it's in the offensive zone as a forechecker or in your D zone as the first guy to close, the first guy sets the tone. And if he goes, I think everyone else knows where it's going generally, and he can react.
And that's something that you learned from the playoffs the most, you think? Just watching Florida, that's something that you were impressed with probably from throughout it?
Yeah, and just how hard they play.
Yeah.
Like playing in the inside and, being in Chicago for the last 3 years, young team, I don't think they valued or understand all. You have to play inside. Like you got to win the net front battle at both ends. You got to get into guys' hands. You got to be physical when you need to be physical. And Florida does it better than anybody, and they get rewarded, right? So
I feel like it's probably a good spot for you because Footy's been doing this for the last couple of years with these guys. You're kind of just picking up the mantle there and running with it at this point. So I'm not saying you have an easy job. I'm just saying Footy's laid a good base for
foundation.
Anyways. Let's get to another part of your job here is going to be working with the penalty kill. And, it's another good spot. The penalty kill feels like it finished the season in a great spot. So how do you come in here and continue what they just accomplished this past season and want to build on that? Because when you're so successful, I feel like that's when it's hardest to even find that you need to build on something. So I'm curious to get your perspective on that and how you want to approach it.
Well, I haven't thought much about how to build it because I finished second in the league, right? And our kill in Chicago was good all year until probably the last month. Like we traded Seth Jones and had a lot of young kids coming at the end, and it kind of caved a little bit the last 10 games, but it was really good for a while. And so I watched, Ian sent some videos, so I watched closely how Vancouver, and it's almost identical to what we were trying to do in Chicago. So there's not going to be, for me, I understand how Vancouver kills, which is great because I believe in it. It's perfect, like perfectly aligned. The up ice was a little different, the forecheck, but I like it a lot. So I don't think there's going to be a ton of tweaks and adjustments to be made because they were so successful. I think the D do a great job. We got some big guys back there. Forbert, Myers, long guys that disrupt a lot. You got some quick players, Garland, some of these guys up front. So Hoglander, I think Hoglander kills right. And so some of these guys are quick. So I like what I see. And I think it's just going to be more of the same of getting back to where we were at the end of last year because I think it finished really, really strong the last 20 games.
Right.
And understanding, like that's the other thing is it's a huge part of the game, like special teams. Like there's not much daylight between the worst team in the league and the best team in the league 5-on-5 goals. But the power plays and special teams can really separate teams. So I think it's a huge part and understand that the penalty killers, a lot of times it's your bottom six forwards, your bottom pair D. Like it's an important part of the game. This is a great role for you to play, get your ice time, and it's it helps us win games.
Yeah, some of the cool stories that I always hear about players is like they approach a coach and say, "Hey, I want to kill penalties." So like I'm curious if you're coaching middle of the season and some guy who hasn't done it all year is like, "Kev, I want to play on the PK." Where do you start with a guy like that? Especially if they like haven't done it at all as a pro or anything.
Well, most guys, I feel most guys in your team should either play one or the other, PK or PP, and most, I think that, certainly not everybody fills that role, but most guys do. So if they're not, so you got to manage ice times too. So, if you're on the, third or fourth line and you're not playing power play and you're not playing penalty killing, you're probably not playing that much. And then some guys are getting worn out. I think it's good for your team to have spread that ice time out. So I think it would be a good conversation to have if a kid's not playing either. Like Jake DeBrus, for example, I don't think he killed a lot here. Yeah. He killed, in Boston, I coached him, he killed a lot there, and he did a really good job. I think for some young players coming in the league, too, that are really offensively tilted, which a lot of these guys just kind of talked about that, what's your identity? It's a good thing to put them into the penalty killing because it gets them focused on, the game's more than just offense, right? I'm going to grow my game defensively. And sometimes the PK is a good area to do that. But back to your question, I think, if is he wired that way? You know what I mean? Yeah. Some kids you can just see are wired. They want to block shots. They want to kill plays. They want to play defensively. And if that's the case, then absolutely put them in those situations. If they're a little tilted more offensively and they're not, then maybe just say, thanks, but we'll keep it in mind.
Power play rooms that way.
Yeah, we'll keep it in mind. But
during your time with Boston, the 5 years there, over those 5 years, you had the third best penalty kill percentage. Was it about the group that you had or how they bought in? Because what I've found with this Canucks team is it's a lot of similar guys now building chemistry. And throughout the year, they've talked about, hey, if I'm the center playing with this winger, the chemistry that they build throughout the year is so important. So how much of it was about chemistry in Boston, or what do you kind of give credit to?
I think there was some chemistry there because it had some really good. I mean, you had Dano Chara there for a while. You had, Brandon Carlos, terrific. Charlie McAvoy. You had some really good penalty killers. Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, right? And those guys are elite players, right? They just are, especially on the penalty killing side. So part of that is the talent level of the player. But you're right. Like Marchand and Bergeron were so good together and just reading off each other and seamless switches and stuff like that. So there's chemistry. It's a big part of it. It really is. And like to your point, like this team, the core of this team is, there's 10 guys that have probably been here for 3, 4, 5 years together, right? And I think that it takes time. It takes time to build a good kill. And I think, it's not going to be overnight, but I think that it's starting to pay the dividends by having that core together. And it pays dividends on both ends of the ice, to be honest with you. But you can see it more, be easiest in the penalty killing side of things.
Kind of to a similar degree there, building defense pairings. Like, how much do you come in and look at what guys did last year, or do you kind of just reset? Like, how do you approach that in the spot that you're in right now?
Well, Foote knows them better than I do. Yeah. But I like to have, a guy that's a puck mover with a guy that's more of a defensive thinker. Quinn, I'd ideally like to put him with someone who, I played with Tyler a lot at the end of the year, right? Like Tyler's a little more defensive minded. Hronek played with Pedersen, right? I think so.
Time, yeah.
Like Hronek can get the puck up the ice. So can Marcus, but like they're wired a little bit differently, right? I don't think you want two offensive guys together and two stay-at-home guys together because like I said, you need 5 guys carrying an offense and 40% of your pairs not thinking offense. I don't think that's great either, right? So try to balance out maybe an offensive thinker with a defensive guy and just see. But then, like you said, chemistry is a big part of it. You got to tweak it, and injuries happen.
Yeah. And obviously different parts of the game, everything kind of goes into it. Something that I don't know if we see it more nowadays than we've in the past, but definitely it happens throughout the season where like a lefty has to play with a lefty, a righty has to play with a righty. How do you set up a player in a position for that if it does happen where say, hey, you're down a right D, you're going to have to play the right side tonight? I know a lot of guys like it for the 1T off of the offensive zone shot, but there's a lot of things that are a lot more difficult about playing your offside. But it's just going to happen. There are going to be times, and some guys can do it better than others. How do you kind of approach that if the situation were to happen this year?
Well, I think that when a lefty's playing the right side, for example, I think it's easy to, you're getting pucks from your partner and your back's kind of half turned to the ice, up ice. So I talk about not getting wide, an extra shoulder check before you get the puck. But I think a lot of it's just your position on the ice. Like, make sure you're not glued to the boards because it's easy to drift wide when you're in your offside. Instead of going up ice, I think your tendency is to get wide. So talk about some of that stuff because I think it matters. And then the other thing is the rushes. It's a little bit different. Like your stick is closer to the rush than your offside, which is great, but it's a little bit easier maybe to cut in on you. So there's some different things there. And then it's honestly to the partner. So if you and I are both lefties, I try to encourage you, if I'm playing the right side, don't shovel to me if you can make a play because why shovel to a guy who's playing on his backhand? I try to, take a little onus on yourself tonight to get the puck up yourself because why shovel the puck to your partner if he's going to be on his offside, right? So there's a couple nuances, but you're right. Some guys are just more equipped for it.
Some guys like it.
A little more poised. I liked it because you could, as you're carrying the puck up the ice, if you step one step into the middle, now you've got options everywhere. Yeah. Right? On your forehand. On this side, if you step into the middle, all of a sudden you're on your backhand up the strong side. So there's some pros and cons. Like you said, the one-timer's a good thing, but doesn't present itself that often. Yeah,
some of the guys were saying, like, when you're on the offside, you really get a good look. Like, when receiving a pass, you're almost directly facing the open ice. Yeah. It's interesting. Like, some coaches really are against it, and some coaches are fine if you have to deal with it. Some coaches like it. Like, it's kind of just the way the league's evolving, I guess.
And retrievals, you can go back in your own zone, and you can just rip it around on your forehand pretty hard on a rim. Now, you don't want to rim pucks all night, but it is a viable play at times. So there's some definitely pros and cons, but I think in the neutral zone is where you can get jammed up. Because if you're giving me the puck and I'm like this, taking it on my forehand, on my offside, like right away, I can't see what's up ice for me, right? So you got to be a little bit aware of that.
That's like the left-handed shortstop trying to make the throw. Exact same type of thing, right? Just kind of looking at this team in general now. 2 years ago, good playoff run, one of the best teams in the league. This past year, a big step back. A lot of hunger from those guys that were going into this offseason. For you now to look at that group, what is it like stepping into that after watching them be at such a high and then a pretty low in this past season? And now you step in here with that hunger that these guys have. What's it like for you stepping in with this group?
I'm curious to see, like you said, the hunger, because I don't know these players very well. But how are we going to respond, to a down year? Because that's, you have stretches in the season that don't go well. There's the hockey, you're not always on top, right? It's a tough game, it's a tough league. So how's the team going to respond? And I think if the team can respond well, that's a really good sign, right? You come out of the gates well, play some hockey, play on our toes. Some of the, I don't know exactly what the problems were last year here, but I know it didn't go the way, it did the year before. So, how do these guys going to respond? They're going to take some onus for it. They're going to take some leadership. And I think we're going to put a lot of pressure, not pressure, but a lot of expectation on our leadership group to kind of pull his team through it and, get them back up to where the expectation is.
Yeah, you've had some pretty hardcore fans in your time, and Chicago fans, Boston fans. What do you know about Vancouver fans and how hardcore they are?
I don't know anything about the Vancouver fan. I know the Canadian markets are tougher. Yeah. The media, like being in Boston for 5 years and playing Toronto in the playoffs 2 times, it was, I don't know if it helps Toronto that sometimes, right? Yeah. I don't know what the Vancouver market is like. I just know that the chatter can, you got to tune that out. You got to, what really matters are the 25 guys in the locker room and how they feel and how they react to each other. Try to keep the chatter to, the outside noise if you want to, what really matters is when we go on the ice, how are we playing? Are we playing for each other? Are we skating? Are we competing? And if you do that, I think you'll be in good shape. I don't think I think fan bases are all pretty fair. If they see a good effort, they'll appreciate it, right?
Yeah.
And it's up to the team to kind of have the discipline to keep some of that chatter out and just focus on what matters. And that's the 60 minutes during the game, right?
Yeah. It's kind of a new neck of the woods for you here in Vancouver, living up here on the West Coast. Like, what are you most excited for? Just setting up here?
My wife and kids always tell me it's the most beautiful city I've seen, like big city I've ever seen, right? So really excited to be here. I like to get outside and, I like to fish. I don't think I'll get a chance to fish during hockey season or hunt or any of that stuff, but I just looking around, it's just fantastically beautiful place. Looking forward and, days off, maybe go out and take a hike or take a walk up in the mountains. My kids all like to ski and my wife likes to ski, so that'll be fun for them. But it's a beautiful place. People seem really nice, as all Canadians do. So I'm just excited to spend some time here.
Yeah. So I'll give you a fishing story, and then I want one from you. The best one I ever had when I was 10 years old was fishing the Stamp River up in Port Alberni, and I caught a fish, and I made it into BC Sports Fishing magazine with the photo. And I thought it was most incredible. It's my best fishing story. As a fisherman yourself, do you have a story for me of a fish that sticks out?
Not really. Last 5 years, I live out in Maine on the water, so I'm out fishing a lot. Caught some nice fish, but 1999, I came out to British Columbia to see a friend I played with in New Jersey, and it was Scott Niedermayer's brother Rob liked to fish. Scott didn't like to fish. He's like, Rob will take you fishing. I'm like, great. So Rob takes me fishing, and Jason Crog was one of the guys that went with us. And I didn't know Jason at the time, right? I'm like, oh, this is great. I know he went to UNH. This is where I went. But we had a great day fishing. We fished and caught some huge bull trout.
Yeah.
And I asked Jason about it yesterday. I'm like, remember taking me fishing? He's like, no. I'm like, you don't? He's like, when did I take you fishing? Like, he thought he met me for the first time. I'm like, well, me, you, Rob Niedermayer, and Kevin up with fishing. He's like, oh, yeah, that's right. We had a great day. And then he remembered the day because we did catch, a lot of 25-inch bull trout. So he remembered the day, but I had to jog his memory.
Yeah.
But it was a great day.
All right, well, I'll tell you, you're going to like Niels Höglander when you get to meet him. He's a big fisherman.
Is he?
So, yeah, you guys will jive pretty good.
So what does he fish for?
He's up in Sweden, so he's told me the fish before. I can't remember what they are up in there. I don't know how different.
Fish.
I think it's sort of like pike, I guess, but you got to ask him over top of me. But
that's great. That's interesting.
All right, well, this has been great. Good chance to get to know you for Canucks fans, and I know you got a lot on your plate moving forward here, but working with the defense, I know it's going to be a lot of good guys excited to work with you and continue to kind of build on what Foote's established here for the past little bit. So, Kevin, it's been a hell of a conversation here. Appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck this season.
Thank you.
Absolutely.